Hi everyone. I saw another episode of Wheel of Time. This time, episode 5, and I wish I could say that I liked it wholesale. I really enjoyed a part of it, and I was kind of meh on the rest of it. So let's start with a the most positive thing about this episode, which is Lan. I mean, seriously, Daniel Henney, can he act or what? He delivered an outstanding performance as Lan. He was outstanding from episode 1 ongoing. He is one of the highlights of the show for sure. And for context, in this episode, he was kind of left in charge to take care of his friend Stepan, who lost his Aes Sedai as a warder, and he failed because Stepan, the warder who lost his Aes Sedai, unfortunately took his own life over grief. And the parts of the episode that revolved around that, around the relationship between Stepan, their friendship, the way Stepan kind of slowly probed him, lowered Lan's shields about Nynaeve, and the potential romantic prospects between the two of them, but in a way that was very compassionate and kind, and wasn't in a bro way, not in a stereotypical macho way, but in a way where you could really see they have this friendship of few words but deep understanding between them, and both actors conveyed it very well, and it was just a joy to watch. And that about is it when it comes to my enjoyment of this episode. The rest of the episode was, I'm not gonna say disjointed, but it left me cold. Once again, the bit with Egwene and Perrin left me just flat, especially since my observation about the White Cloaks and being cartoonishly sadistic and mustache-twirlingly evil continued to be proven, because as much as I enjoy a cheesy performance, a performance when someone hams it up, I think the child Valda doesn't really fit with his performance. I don't think he's a bad actor, but his energy, his performance, I think bounces off the performance of everyone else that's acting against him. In this case, Egwene and Perrin, they get caught and brought in front of him because he is convinced that Egwene is an Aes Sedai and Perrin is her warder. And he starts to torture Perrin. He takes a knife after having his daily villain lunch, starts to carve out a tic-tac-toe field on Perrin's back with a knife. And it's not great. And the flashing of yellow eyes of Perrin, as to show us, his transformation into Wolf Brother. I don't think that was all that well done. Not the effect itself, but I don't see the need to, bring it back and forth. to flesh it around. I mean, it's been a while since I read the first book, but from what I remember, he just clicks and suddenly has yellow eyes, and that's a major plot point because he can't hide them. And here it was like a, I don't know, an enraged reaction or something. I mean, it was cool that Egwene freed both of them because the leader of White Cloaks, Child Valda, insisted upon, you know, making a choice. Either one of them dies or both of them dies, so la-di-da. And surprise, surprise, none of them die. Egwene successfully channels enough to free Perrin, and then savagely stabs Child Valda. Okay, that was cool. She wounds him, but not mortally, and then a pack of wolves ravages the White Cloaks camp, and they escape. And previously there was a scene again with Egwene and Perrin with Tinkers, and again, I'm just not feeling them in this show at all. Their display of non-violent protest, I suppose, where they all took hands and took a beating, I see an interesting parallel to real-world activism and protests, but I just don't think they fit in all that well in the show. And then we have Nynaeve, who I think was kind of sidelined in this episode, and that's fine. I mean, you have a large cast, and the cast and points of view are just gonna increase, so that's not the huge deal. But I'm just hoping that Nynaeve shows a bit more initiative, which she certainly did in this episode, because she found, through Loyal, she found Matt and Rand. But I just hope that Nynaeve doesn't... What I'm trying to say is, in the books, I think one of the most interesting parts about Nynaeve was the gradual transition of how she sees herself as a wisdom to an Aes Sedai. It wasn't a flip of a switch, and I think it took her a long time to grow in that direction. And with how everyone is kind of preparing her as a prized possession in the tower. I mean, Leandrin instantly wants her as one of the Reds, maybe, and so on and so forth. I hope the transition to a novice isn't that quick. And another thing that I didn't like was sadly Loyal, and not the actor. I think the actor is wonderful. The voice and his bearing, the way he moves, you know, in a slow, deliberate manner, just as he talks in a slow, deliberate manner, as a being who has not all the time in the world, but certainly much more and enough to have luxury of pondering each and every step and decision. But the makeup was kind of off. I think the hair looks kind of artificial, and the nose and everything. I mean, the height, I don't know how they did it. I don't think they used forced perspective or anything. It looks convincing enough. I just don't think some of the facial prosthetics, and not even maybe the facial prosthetics, but just the design, the art direction they went with him, kind of off. but maybe I'll get used to it. I mean, I'm no stranger to prosthetics on a person, and I much rather have prosthetics and makeup than CGI on someone's face and features. I mean, we've seen it in Wheel of Time earlier, where they had scenes of Trollocs with close-ups where they clearly were people in costumes, and that looked great. But then when they switched to, some zoomed out scenes, you can clearly see they were CGI. And I prefer costumes and special effects because, I spent my life watching shows like Star Trek and Babylon 5 and so on, where you have people, humanoid people with weird foreheads and ridges and stuff, and you could literally see that it's, not real. So yeah. I have to say that another thing that I noticed, which might actually be a positive thing, is the language, the actual language in Robert Jordan's books was his particular flavor of archaic. The dialogue, especially between characters, had this full archaic manner to it at times, and they streamlined it quite a bit here in the show, and I think that's for the better. Now, I still think the jury's out, but the reason why they did it, I think, is on the page it adds gravitas to the speakers in dialogue when it's slightly heightened and grandiose. And in the show it can come off as cheesy, and I think the grandiose angle can be achieved with a great delivery of an experienced actor who has a lot of gravitas, which I think they do. Like Thom is an actor with a lot of gravitas. Even Tam, which we saw briefly, also has a lot of gravitas. The show is littered with character actors, I think, who can pull it off. But when it comes to main characters, I think it's good that they don't, recite long diatribes, and instead just use plain language like shit, which Matt did in this episode. All in all, I was a bit disappointed with this episode. So this is more than halfway through the season, right? We have 8 episodes total, so next episode is 6, which I haven't seen yet, and the 7th episode is gonna be out this week in the time I am recording this, so we'll see. I am curious as to how and in what manner the cutoff is gonna be, because this is not even, I guess, half of the first book, but that it doesn't have to be, in linear manner. They don't have to go through books in linear manner, especially since a lot of the events happen in parallel. So yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you everyone for watching and subscribing, and as always, thank you to my Patreon supporters, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.